I'm making this video to try and convince my brother-in-law that it's not a good idea to use an asset manager. All right, am I ever going to show this video to him? Probably not, because it's applying too much pressure and it's getting involved in his finances. It's over the line, it's too personal. But I still want to make the video because the points remain the same. And there could be other people trying to make the same exact decision. Should I use an asset manager? So let's start from the beginning. There are actually benefits to an asset manager. I'm not trying to hate on asset managers as a whole. For example, they know a lot of stuff about a lot of different accounts, and you can ask them questions. You're not stuck Googling. They are a professional. They have certifications. That's big. Another big thing, well, they can do all the administrative work. They move money when you change jobs, 401ks. They can manage all the different accounts. You're not writing down passwords and trying to remember where money is. They keep it organized. They become a single point of contact for all of your financial mess that they can simplify. So that's huge. Another thing, if you work in the financial industry, an asset manager can actually shield you from some liability because there are rules about what you're allowed to trade and hold, what positions you can mess with if you work for a bank or another financial institution. All right, I gotta stop. Now it's starting to sound like I like asset managers. So let me get to the point I'm trying to make. The question we have to ask is, how much will an asset manager cost? And those benefits that they offer, is it worth what it costs? So let's get into it. Most asset managers and financial planners, if they're holding your money, they're going to be paid in a commission based on the assets under management. It's called an AUM. And 1% is kind of the standard. And sometimes it'll go up or down. Sometimes it'll be lower if you have more money because they want to have an incentive for you to put as much money as possible in there. And sometimes it'll even be higher than that. It can be up to 2% if it's not really enough money to be worth their time. And these percentages are not a cap. These are actually the minimums. So if you're paying an annual percentage of 1%, they still can have fees, like an account fee or a management fee that's a set number. And then they might even have transaction fees. And there can also be fees for each position that they hold. So if you're here, I assume you like finances, but just in case you're actually scared of finances and that's why you're watching this to consider a financial advisor, let me explain what I mean by fees on the positions you hold. Even if you're just buying something as an individual, stocks don't usually have fees, but other funds, index funds, mutual funds, they do have fees. So whether you're doing it on your own or through the advisor, you're going to get hit with an expense ratio. That's basically just a common way of telling you what amount of your money is going to be hit with a fee if you have your money in that fund. So index funds, really, really low expense ratios, sometimes as low as 0.03. So basically zero, 1/20th of a single percent. But then other times, if it's an actively managed fund, that bank might be charging an expense ratio that's 1%, 1.5. Some actively managed funds are even as high as 2. So when I say that an AUM fee of 1% is the minimum, it's because if they are buying actively managed funds, you're going to be paying 1% to them and 1% to the bank that is managing that actively managed fund. So that 1% minimum is your ground floor for your annual expenses. So now that we established what the expense is to use an asset manager, we want to see what impact that actually has on your finances over time. So let's take a look. Let's look at an example here with $50,000 as your starting amount. I chose 50 because if you're looking at a financial advisor, you probably have at least a decent little nest egg saved up. And I want you to have that money invested as soon as possible because you want that money to be working for you. Some financial advisors have minimums. Actually, most do. Sometimes that minimum is 100,000. Sometimes it's $500,000, $1 million or more. So here we have our $50,000. This is done using Schwab's MoneyWise calculator, but there are many others like it, and you'll get the same numbers. So $50,000 is the starting point over 30 years to retirement, and we're going to assume you're going to continue to contribute $1,000 per month. I'm going to use 8% as the annualized return because that is a conservative average for the S&P 500. That's the market. That's what you're going to get if you throw this money in a low expense ratio index fund. So we want to see 3 different scenarios here. Let's say you have 0% is your most conservative option. You're not using a financial advisor. You invest it in a low expense ratio index fund where it's basically 0 fee. Then we're going to look at using a financial advisor, and they are investing in a low expense ratio index fund for you. So it's just their 1% AUM. And then we're going to use a 2% investment fee, which is the idea of using a financial advisor who then is going to put your money into an actively managed fund or funds that all charge another 1% fee for using their services. This is an interesting chart. The numbers are a little hard to read, so let me guide you through it. At the beginning, they're basically even because none of that interest has compounded. And as time goes by, you can see that these numbers start to split drastically. And by the end of 30 years, you have your full 8% with no fee included is this big blue line nearing $2 million. Then, if you have an AUM financial advisor, it will bring your total growth down to 7% each year annualized. And that's this gray bar. That's 1.556 million. That is a big hit, $400,000 hit. And then what if your financial advisor is investing your money into actively managed funds and you're getting hit with a 2% fee? Now that balance is down to 1.266. So that means there is a $654,000 difference between the cheap do-it-yourself method with a low expense ratio index fund and using an investment advisor over the course of 30 years. But let's look at one more example before we move on. Let's say we used larger numbers. Let's say you've got a bigger nest egg, 150,000, and you take investment seriously as you should, and you put $2,000 a month in there every single month. That's a lot of money. Maybe you're not there, but maybe you will be there soon. So it's important to see how these numbers scale over time with larger amounts. So if we use those numbers, by the time you retire, if you are using an investment advisor, you're still looking pretty. You got yourself $2.8 million. And let's say your investment advisor was really conservative and they didn't charge you too many fees, you're up at $3.5 million. But if you did all of that yourself and you didn't use an investment advisor and you were in low-cost index funds tracking the S&P 500, you'd be at $4.34 million. That means the difference between an average financial advisor and you doing it yourself is 1.5 million in retirement. Those numbers cannot be ignored. Now, I can hear what you're thinking. Some people would say, yeah, but an investment advisor can beat the market. And that's where I say, can they? And don't take my word for it. Why don't you Google it right now? Can an investment advisor beat the market? AI will tell you immediately, no, they cannot reliably beat the market. And what's more, this doesn't stop at AI or Googling or third parties. This is coming directly from financial advisors' websites. They'll tell you up front. They cannot beat the market. They're trying to manage your expectations. The S&P 500 will do better than they can do over the long run. You have to appreciate their honesty because you can go to the advisor websites and see where they admit where their shortcomings are. And if it's about beating the market, they can't do it and they know it. So they are expressing the same thing that I said at the beginning of the video. Their benefits are coming from other things about prioritizing goals and building a financial plan and helping you come up with how you're going to handle your money going forward, organizing your finances. There are benefits, but beating the market is not one of them. So that brings us to an interesting conclusion then. The financial advisors themselves and all the data tell us that they can't beat the market. They're going to be at or below the S&P 500. and they have massive fees. So over the course of your lifetime, you will be missing out on huge amounts of your earning potential if you're giving it to the fees of a financial advisor instead of investing it yourself. I do want to say that I'm talking about asset managers in this video who are holding on to your assets and investing it for you. But there are financial planners and financial advisors who don't hold your money. They charge flat fees or an hourly rate to give you advice and help set you up for financial success in the future. Those can be great resources because you can spend a couple hours or a couple sessions with someone now. They can come up with the financial plan for you, and then you set it and forget it. You never have to think about it or pay fees about it ever again. That can be a great thing. So I just want to make that distinction between asset managers who hold your money and charge fees and commissions every year versus people who just give financial advice for flat rates. So I think I've spelled out everything I can. I think I've made my case, and I know that some people just can't be convinced based on the numbers because financial things can be really scary. So I do want to make some more videos and try and make investments a little more accessible and a little less scary, but that's not revolutionary. There are tons of great resources out there right now. I could list things like Jeremy at Personal Finance Club or Andre Jick or Graham Stephan or The Money Guy Show. They are all awesome and they can guide you in how to invest. And to be honest, you've already taken a big step. You're watching a full video about fees and numbers and math and retirement. That's stuff that a lot of people would find boring. But if you've made it this far, it's because you care. Keep taking steps down this road. Keep learning about investments. It does take a bit of effort at the beginning. You're front loading that effort, but it is well worth it because it will literally pay for itself over your entire life as it gives you greater returns. And honestly, feels pretty great to be in full control of your finances, not leaving it up to someone else. It puts you in the position of power with your finances. Pretty great spot to be. You will not regret it. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If I messed anything up in this video and you have little critiques for me, let me know. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to talk about it. I think I legally have to say this is not official advice. This is not financial advice. Don't take any of this too seriously. I am just an amateur, but I love this stuff. I hope I've set you on a good path and answered some questions, shined a light on some things for you. Again, thanks for watching.